Hi guys. Um, Thanks so much for joining tonight. Could somebody type in the chat if you can hear me properly? Are there any issues with sound? Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Aaron. Awesome, Mary Joan. Thank you so much. Yeah, guys. Well, I just want to start off with kind of a brief address, and just want to express, profound gratitude from the ThinkSpot team, just on behalf of the ThinkSpot team, for you guys taking the time out tonight to learn a little bit more about kind of what we envision for the platform going forward, especially in regards to how it relates to JBP Daily, something that's very near and dear to this community, as well as us. I think a quick segue from that is the team from the outset at ThinkSpot has been remarkably, just like truly impressed with the kind of quality of discourse that's going on there. It really kind of exemplifies the exact kind of substance that we're looking to cultivate on ThinkSpot. It's kind of an area of digital media and media consumption and kind of community, all of those things intersecting, that's underserved right now, and that's something we want to address. There's some really great questions in the chat right now that I think are very complimentary in some of the things that I'm going to be talking about before we get to the Q&A. But you guys also, I hope you had just a moment to kind of read through my original post in the initial PM to everybody here. And some of the reasons why we reached out to you have to do very directly with kind of the nature of your leadership on the JBP Daily Forum and that community, as well as just the high caliber kind of content and discussion that you're fomenting there. It's something that we're truly impressed with, and I'm going to be speaking later about some of the ways that we want to feature you guys and kind of give you the tools to unlock the same experience that you've had on JBP Daily, but something even larger if you're interested in that as well, as we look to grow the community and kind of the gifts that you guys bring to this environment in particular. So just, I guess, some quick background about our team and myself. We're a small team right now based in New York. We've been working on the ThinkSpot platform for about 5 months, although it's been in the works in an ideation kind of phase for almost a year. I'd like to, I think, make one thing clear. Actually, I'll get to that in a second. But on my front, I'm going to be heading up the kind of community development, liaising with the folks who are really going to be the heart and soul of this platform, which is hopefully you guys, along with additional users who are going to be registering in the near future as our beta launch is coming up. And we can talk a little bit about that timeline going forward as well. I'm also going to be working on some editorial publication-based things we're folding in, as well as some content curation. So definitely wearing a lot of hats at the moment. We're pretty bootstrapped, small team, but really have our nose to the grindstone, trying to provide something of a game changer in the way of digital information media, subscription-based kind of access to public intellectuals, academics, people influencing kind of the zeitgeist at the moment across the entire ideological spectrum. So that's kind of where we are from our point. Just in terms of the nature of our relationship to the JBP Daily Forum, is one thing that I regret that I made a mistake in not making clear enough, is that we're actually not related at all to the folks who were operating JBP Daily, who operated the forum since its inception. We came in very late, and Dr. Peterson himself was looking to consolidate a lot of the work onto the ThinkSpot team. Not to say that we're shutting down JBP Daily, just in the sense that he wanted us to kind of oversee that environment as well. So we came in pretty late, and I'm not trying to kind of shift blame or point fingers, but just wanted to assert that, there was some feedback that you guys were being kind of underserved previously, but for the moderators over the last few months, and I think a lot of things haven't been delivered that were promised as well in the way of kind of the online course, et cetera. So we want to be a lot more hands-on than the previous team. We really kind of want to prioritize the users in the community as much as possible, because at the end of the day, this project's only going to be as good as the kind of ecosystem that we can provide for the user base and the leaders there in particular. So that's kind of our outlook as well. But just wanted to kind of get that across, that this isn't sort of a pivot off of JBP Daily. They just happen to be kind of a coinciding wire crossing, just in the nature of the timeline of this project. So our team is basically a group of about 4 to 5 people from the Bay Area who kind of came up with this idea and happen to have some tangential relationship to Dr. Peterson through our founder, who kind of pitched the project and the idea, and we were able to hit the ground running kind of pretty soon thereafter. We're fortunate to have that opportunity, so we're trying to make the most of it. But all in all, really looking forward to having you guys all on board. Hopefully, potentially, I really can't emphasize enough how how much we admire the work that you guys have put forth and contributed to the JBP Daily Forum. It's actually pretty inspiring from our perspective, because in a lot of ways, what you guys have created there is sort of this almost platonic ideal of what we're looking to create, albeit in a slightly different format, which I'll get into in a bit. I'm just going to quickly make sure I'm not brushing over anything. Okay, so I guess I'm just going to do kind of one more item on the agenda, and then we can move it to addressing your questions, because there's some really good stuff out there that I'd like to cover. That's going to catalyze, I think, a bit of a Q&A, and so a little bit more derivative action going into where these questions are stemming from and what our approach is. But would also like to mention that going forward, I was anticipating this was going to be maybe a bit too big of a group to do kind of a Skype style chat, but that's something I think I know that I'd like to do going forward, kind of breaking out into smaller groups and really to be available to you guys to chat throughout the coming weeks before we launch our beta, and kind of get you guys set up if you would like in our system, and just be as close to this community as possible. So going forward, I think this will probably be the last general state of ThinkSpot, if you will, in relation to JBP Daily, and then want to kind of get to know everybody a little bit more personally, make it more of kind of an accessible experience for everybody, because we would like you guys to be very substantially integrated in what we're doing, ideally. So I'm just going to say a little bit about the ThinkSpot sort of ethos, mission, where we see ourselves heading, and what the implications of that are for this group. So essentially, this sort of started off as I guess the progenitor was really Dr. Peterson and his intent to capture the spirit of a Patreon type alternative after some of its more censorious behavior. That's obviously a very problematic issue at the time, at this moment. We just continue to see these issues pop up in the news cycle. I have various Google alerts coming up, and it's actually, I thought I was pretty had my finger on the pulse of what's going on with this stuff, but it's even more alarming than I thought now that I've actually dedicated quite a bit of time to it. So with that in mind, from the outset, we don't want to be censoring folks on the platform, whether they be users or contributors. However, we do have a strategic element to the way we're rolling out additional contributors after Dr. Peterson, as well as creating the user environment, in that we're trying to cultivate, as I mentioned earlier, kind of something particularly conducive to long-form, in-depth discussion, similar to what you guys have achieved at the JBP Daily Forum, which isn't easy, and we don't take that for granted. But that is the goal. So with that in mind, we're not really opening up the floodgates per se early on for this environment, just in order to protect it at the early stages and kind of set the tone for where we want things to go. But down the road, we do want to allow kind of everybody across the ideological spectrum to come here and consume and engage in the content in a meaningful way. This isn't kind of an overly saccharine, shallow, brief sort of short form location or destination, in the sense that we're somewhat of a rejection of the Facebook, YouTube, Twitter style consumption that's there. They're great platforms in a lot of ways in terms of their accessibility and their scale and what they're able to do for interconnectedness, but there's also a lot of issues that they have with how they handle kind of public discourse issues in a private environment, as well as sort of the instantiation of ideological bias and just their general prioritization of monetization over quality at the expense of quality. So those are all things that we're very wary of in the larger context, but just kind of want to give you a sense of how we see this. So we're very cognizant of the censorship issues, but additionally, we would, really like to build something that attracts a range of folks in terms of their perspective, as long as they're willing to, contribute in a meaningful way and in good faith. Obviously, that we don't live in a world, especially these days on the internet, where that's of course going to be happening 100% of the time. But we also have internal moderation infrastructure ready to go that allows the users and the ecosystem to kind of police itself in a very transparent way, hopefully from the folks who are setting the tone early on properly, and making sure that their community is adhering to standards, certain standards, and not catering to trolls or provocateurs or shock artists. And essentially that's not our decision to make. It's sort of the users. We want them to own the space, to have a high degree of autonomy over the space and the way they interact with each other. As we all know, just kind of the dividends that kind of freedom pays in terms of discussion and engaging with ideas. So I guess another key element to think about in this is we're sort of trying to select individuals or groups or publications early on as a function of trying to set this tone that I mentioned, that are really dedicated and committed to engaging with ideas, principles, philosophy over 24/7 news cycle type politics and partisanship. And so our outlook is that there is sort of an underrated, underexposed, underrepresented group of consumers, as well as content creators and publications, editorial or otherwise, who really are in this space and doing a lot to try and, I guess, untangle themselves from this really crazy web of, I don't know, kind of partisanship or really hyper political, dominant, overwhelming kind of atmosphere in terms of discourse at the moment, and are really trying to stick to the ideas level. And it's our belief that that necessarily isn't, I guess, too abstract. It's just more of a way to kind of lessen the stakes and get back to the basics and start to think of things from a more thoughtful, introspective place that then can be tied down and is a little bit more conducive to a nuanced approach to analyzing issues, engaging in kind of personal reflection and reflection of society, cultural, and political aspects of kind of the contemporary world. So that's how we sort of see things and how we want this environment to operate, who we want to be in there early on. And then once we really open it up, that it'll kind of naturally, organically grow in that way. There will be road bumps. There will be things that we didn't foresee, for sure. We've learned a lot of lessons already. But that's the vision at the moment. And I'd also like to say we really appreciate all the feedback everybody's been giving about ThinkSpot. It's a total privilege to have such thoughtful folks be engaged in the beta, which is a time for us to really learn about what's working, what's not, where things might it might be more advantageous for us and for the users to head in this direction or tweak this piece of functionality or features. With that being said, what we've debuted with is a very raw version of kind of a smaller piece of what we ultimately see down the road. It's just been a matter of manpower in terms of our team, and we're pretty bootstrapped financially in terms of trying to get this done. So, we're chugging away, trying to get to this end product, tweaking things along the way, making small turns here and there, and a lot of it thanks to you guys. It's been very productive. So I really can't, express, how thankful we are for that kind of relationship we've established on the platform. So it's been a huge help, and all the more reason that we, really respect this group and feel super lucky to be to kind of cross paths with you guys. It's a pretty unique opportunity. So anyway, I'm sure there's some things that I probably didn't cover that I'd hoped to, but we'll have a lot more opportunities to dig into the weeds in the coming weeks here and get a sense of where things are headed. I like to kind of take a look at the questions that you guys have submitted here in the chat. I'm just going to start from the top, head down. There might be some interspersed that were sort of chains that have been broken up with the 200 character limit. So I'll try and keep it as coherent as possible. But there's some, I already saw a preview of some of the stuff that people are submitting. Really great questions, and I think it's going to cover a lot of the things that I'm leaving out intentionally because you guys are hitting the nail on the head here. So start with Jochen. Apologies if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. I think it's German, but it's not my forte. So appreciate you taking the time here. Okay, so he says, hey, Robert, here's my question, split into parts, given the character limitation. The two platforms, JBP Daily and ThinkSpot, seem to fulfill different purposes and or address different needs. I consider the former an actual community. Initially, people came together based on being inspired by JBP's work and public engagement with ideas, and from there, things have grown fairly organically into a relatively small set of people who are exchanging ideas without the need to be limited by topics initiated by content providers or contributors. ThinkSpot, on the other hand, seems much more a platform where content is more curated by the providers' contributors, where the user interaction will not necessarily be on the same level. I.e., the two sides of contributors and users are much more discernible. Although I acknowledge that at the JBP Daily Community Forum, there may very well be a large number of more passive users who do not as much participate in debate. I myself have been less active over the past few weeks due to stuff in my private life. Question, am I correct in assuming that the two platforms will, at least for the foreseeable future, remain separately supported entities, with maybe some people from the JBP Daily community becoming contributors, but not necessarily forcing everyone to adopt this new platform as a forum replacement? John says he would echo Yalkin's question, and he may add more once he hears my initial comments. So, all right, so let me kind of unpack this. This is a great question and firmly based in a realistic perception of how ThinkSpot exists in conjunction with JBP Daily at the moment, insofar as we have barely, if at all, built out the user environment that we have blueprinted, ready to go into production. Sorry, I should say into development. But right now are just sort of hamstrung by other issues and are working towards that. So it hasn't been in front of you guys yet. That being said, as a general thing going forward, we want to keep the JBP Daily Forum open. We will have elements, which I'll get to in a second here, of ThinkSpot that are going to have some overlap, but we're not going to force or coerce anybody to come over. We want it to be organic in the sense that we want to attract you guys with the quality on ThinkSpot, and it's sort of the ultimate litmus test for us. If you guys do come over and feel like it's a worthy endeavor of kind of being the early leaders and contributors here. So I'm going to delve a little bit into some of that blueprint specifically. Considering we just sort of finished the ideation phase, it might be difficult to grasp, but we're going to continue to have this conversation once we have things in our UI environment, kind of our sandbox environment to show you. We'll be doing walkthroughs, everything, but just bear with me for a second here. So essentially, the JBP Daily community is sort of this autonomous world, this community where you guys have direct relationships to each other, daily interactions based on Jordan's content, but also kind of his content stimulating other questions folks have, others kind of commentary, etc., on the world and just various topics at large. So the way we see that happening on ThinkSpot is we have a range of media that we host from these contributors who are, kind of high-level public intellectuals or academics or publications. They're putting out, videos, podcasts, ebooks, which are annotatable, as you guys have seen. The podcasts are annotatable. We'll have transcripts. The videos are going to be annotatable. There's going to be video-on-video annotation. There's comments on these posts. There's references, citations, right? So there's this whole feature set. So what we want to be able to do is allow folks to create discourse groups insofar as you can either choose to view the ThinkSpot forum in the public setting as any normal kind of user who's not in a group would see it, or you can, if you've joined a group, let's say it's the JBP Daily group, and it has 20, 50 members. If you change the filter to JBP Daily, everything that you see being consumed in that sort of in that media environment, as you've seen on ThinkSpot now, will be just through the JBP Daily folks. Those are the only users you'll see, as well as the contributors that that you're following. In addition, we're going to have a forum component where you're going to have the ThinkSpot forum will also have various views. So if you just do the public view, it's going to be the massive ThinkSpot forum with just kind of free for all. If you switch it to JBP Daily, it's now changing to a totally different world with all the data archive that you guys have produced, all the comments. It's just a completely different view and world. And not only that, you're going to have the forum topics as you've seen before. We're going to be diving in, upvoting, downvoting comments. Being able to PM each other, personally message, which is something that we're building right now, which is a key component of communication for sure. Creating, personal messages with multiple people to have groups. And then in addition to that, there will be a page where any sort of content that the folks in JBP Daily have engaged with, you will have your own kind of media library. So if I'm somebody who comes in and says, wow, this JBP Daily group is really interesting, they're kind of exploring just a really comprehensive gamut of interesting stuff from postmodernism to kind of just Kantian philosophy, whatever it may be. I can click out of the forum onto your page, and I'm going to see the media library where everybody's this group has engaged. So something like 12 Rules for Life. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I've never heard of that book. I'm going to dive in and see what this is about. Or they're looking into Nietzsche, or a variety of kind of different media, the Zizek debate. And there's these folks, people are going to not just be exposed to the groups, but also the media that you guys in turn have been engaged with. So we have kind of, think of it as like almost this is somewhat of a poor analogy, and forgive me if you guys don't have experience with this, but it's just coming to my head at the moment, kind of a Pinterest style, I guess, media archive of what this group has engaged with. In addition, you'll have your own forum, and then you'll have your group, which you can filter as the lens for the entirety of the ThinkSpot environment. So we think that's a pretty kind of dynamic range of opportunities for groups, people who want to create communities. It's this kind of multi-level environment. So I guess in regard to where we see you guys as the leaders going forward is providing folks in JBP Daily, you guys in particular, who really kind of form the major body of the leadership on the forum, is giving you guys the same kind of media posting privileges as a contributor, and therefore being able to kind of moderate forums, be leaders in administrator privileges, being able to, on your own page, if a user clicks to follow you, you are going to be able to post media on your page similar to a contributor, so they can engage in your content in their own feed, whereas other users who haven't reached a certain privilege level yet because they don't have as many upvotes, they haven't been on as long, and we want to ensure that they're actually there for the right reasons, will not be able to do that. So you guys will have your kind of own areas of influence individually, also on the forum, on the JVP Daily page, and then across ThinkSpot. With that, the idea being you guys are kind of contributing this same kind of long form, in-depth discussion-based discourse, engaging with content, engaging with your own content that you're creating in your groups on your own forum, and really kind of setting the tone for things going forward. So that's the bird's eye view of how we envision this and your guys' potential role. Additionally, I really want to lobby for if folks want to come on board and tackle this, and kind of be a part of this inaugural user contributor group, to give you guys some really unique access to, I guess, kind of additional subscription deals, maybe giving some free opportunities, some tickets to Dr. Peterson's events. I'm just gonna really kind of push to make sure that you guys are being valued properly, because I really do think it is a huge opportunity for us as well as you to kind of make this happen. So I'm going to be lobbying for that. Obviously, I can't promise anything at the moment, but we definitely have. I'm in conversations with our team about what we can do to make sure you guys are valued properly if this is something that you want to take on. And we want to give you guys the tools to create your own world, create this really interconnected environment, and sort of unlock all the content that our contributors are going to be providing to the platform. We have about 6 folks lined up that are, we think, really exciting, that will be launched in our public beta within the next month. And we're just continuing to fill that pipeline of people coming in, and some really exciting names that we're stoked to debut for everyone. So let me move on to the next question. So Ron MZ team says, what about moderation? Very difficult subject. It will be very difficult to find a good balance between chaos and censorship. How to deal with the bias of the moderators themselves, right? And so this is where our relationship with you guys as moderators or administrators potentially comes in insofar as coming up with a pretty, First Amendment adherent set of rules, while at the same time using the infrastructure we have to report things to police and kind of incorporate, I guess, preservation of the environment. And the ways that we have in mind of doing that are, there will be spam reports. We're going to be monitoring that constantly. When things reach a certain threshold through various tiers, they'll get escalated to our kind of response team to determine if something is in violation of our community guidelines. And our community guidelines are very First Amendment adherent. So you may say, okay, well, I'm somebody's just a troll and it's just purely provocation. They're not, maybe there's hate speech on there. It's really counterproductive stuff and just really toxic, but it's still visible because we can't censor. Well, the thing is, we also want the users themselves, the idea being that we've created this ecosystem, set the tone for this environment where most people, 99% of folks are there in good faith. Once we get to scale and more people are added. And if somebody of that nature comes along trying to provoke and trying to stir things up, the function of downvotes and spamming reaches a certain tier where if it's so brutally downvoted or it passes a certain threshold, that comment will be hidden behind a notice that says this comment has been downvoted by the community and has been deemed to be hidden, click here if you'd like to view it. So users can then opt in, but it's not going to kind of mar the entire area. That being said, we obviously imagine the nature of, Dr. Peterson in particular and some of the other individuals who are coming on here, there's going to be a high level of bad actors coming in at a certain point across the years. And we believe that it's just going to take serious vigilance and monitoring from the users first and foremost, and just being able to sift through and assess content properly and really help the quality rise to the top. Similar to kind of how Reddit operates with their communities. Obviously, the nature of some of the topics that are on there are a little bit more conducive to ill-advised behavior from users, but we're hoping that by creating also these kind of tiers of trust, these trusted gates where users gain more privileges with the amount of time they spend on ThinkSpot, with the kind of stuff they're engaging with, the contributions they're making, also creates a more kind of, I guess, anti-fragile environment and more robust user experience for everybody. I think this is definitely something that is going to be a point of contention for folks, and something we're going to need to discuss a lot more in depth. But that is kind of the overview for now. But very worthy question of raising at any point. So please feel free to follow up with anything here, guys, as well. If you feel like I'm not doing these questions justice, not to worry. Please feel free to follow up. So, okay. So Classique Liberal asks, have you considered requiring real identities and verification? Yeah, so that is a good question. We've wrestled with this idea, and we want to strike a balance between creating an entrusted community, but also one that's accessible and has low barriers to entry. To a certain degree, there is a monetization element of this platform, especially from the contributor side, where they're going to have their kind of subscription-based content, and therefore, they do want this to kind of scale to a certain degree. But at the same time, by no means do they want folks coming on. They would prefer to have, less people and better actors for kind of the long-term vision, as opposed to open the floodgates and maybe you catch a few more subscribers and a little bit more revenue, but the platform crumbles under the weight of just the trolls and whatever. So for now, we really believe that the balance that we can best strike is with making folks provide email and name. We're thinking about phone number and staying included in there as well. And basically, once they register, they'll have to confirm the account via email, and then they're in. And from there, there's still going to be kind of the trusted gates to make sure they're there for the right reasons. And if they really want to contribute, then we want to give them all the tools possible to have a crack at the platform. Furthermore, we have a really great security vendor that we're working with to additionally make the platform as anti-fragile as possible and as secure as possible. The debate, I don't know if some of you probably already maybe had this experience, about 3% of folks got hit with a 404 notice about 10 minutes into the ZZEC debate. We had some folks come on and hit us with a kind of JS hack that threw a wrench in the smooth sailing that we had envisioned. So I don't know if some of you were able to had the unfortunate experience of diving headfirst into that issue, but we obviously know those things are coming, and we're prepared with a really strong team to counter it. So that's what we feel comfortable with at the moment, but we're prepared, we're flexible, we're versatile to shift if we need to. We have a lot of processes in place to make sure that things aren't compromised seriously. Okay, so John says, I like the idea of the filters. Would we be able to join multiple filter groups? Also, who would moderate joining, or would they be open groups? Right. So glad you find the filters to be an amenable idea. I think it's going to be kind of a transformative experience in terms of the forum world as well. We're hoping that's the case. Absolutely, we encourage folks to have multiple filters, multiple groups. The more the better. If you want to keep things, thematic across the platform with various conversations, there's an infinite amount of groups and topics that are applicable to what's going on with our content, and it helps to kind of provide some coherence, some kind of cohesive things to coalesce around if these filters are there. And of course, we want you to join multiple filter groups. It's going to be, it's from the outset, who knows how many there will be. It's kind of up to the users. I think we would love to have you guys create, a strong core, a strong set of groups, particularly that everybody could join, or just some folks in JBP Daily, whoever's interested in the topic, as like a long-term conversation topic. Additionally, you'll have the forum to have kind of the classic forum experience as well, but this is just sort of a different approach, but absolutely can join multiple filter groups. So who would moderate joining, or would they be open groups? So it would have to be the creators of the discourse group, whether there's one, or as it grows, there's going to have to be consequently a few more moderators, but they're going to decide if they want it to be private and invite only, or public. I think if you guys have seen recently, we've added user following. We want, a lot of folks have said, we want to be able to follow conversations and interesting ideas and folks who are putting forth those ideas on the platform. So by following another user, all their activity is now going to be in your feed. So if I'm in an annotation section of 12 rules and this individual says something particularly compelling, and I'm like, wow, I really want to follow this man or woman, I click on their profile, can follow them. Now anything they comment on is going to be in my feed. I can filter what I want to see from them if you don't want to see the kind of comprehensive suite of stuff. So that following feature is going to make things a little more interconnected as well as the notifications that we added and the personal messaging to come soon, where you can really reach out to folks and invite them to groups if it's going to be invite only. Otherwise, there's going to be kind of a discover function for users to find these different groups, and they can join public ones just at the click of a button if folks are really interested in scaling their groups and growing the community. Finally, totally forgot what I was going to say, so I'm going to move on. But I think if that is not satisfactory of an answer, please let me know, and I would love to follow up here as we head down the list. So I'm going to move on to Mary Joan. She's echoing Ron MZ team and Classique Liberal regarding community building ideas for meetups online and in person, and ways of making people real and knowable instead of bot NPC troll persona. Yeah, so I think these groups, these discourse groups, these discourse group forums, these discourse group pages where you're seeing all the content, like this is that group's world, their kind of sovereign area, if you will, and they have the opportunity to kind of connect in ways that they see fit or aspire to, whether they be in-person meetups, any sort of mapping of the community. I know there's been some talk of kind of like in-person meetups on JBP Daily and also online, face-to-face. We would really like to ultimately provide just kind of go-to video chat functionality. If you really want to dive in on a personal basis to a piece of content or material or forum topic or any sort of contribution on ThinkSpot with an individual or a group, that's something that we envision kind of down the line. But I think and one thing that this sort of alludes to as well is making people real and knowable instead of bot, NPC, troll / persona, is how much, I guess, the expressive parameters, we don't want like personal profile pictures, but we do want people to be able to kind of express themselves in their personality in an authentic way, especially if they're making kind of real connections on the site in topics that are have a lot of depth and, I guess, meaning and significance in people's lives. We want there to be a personal touch, and I think that's going to come with those privileges are going to come for people who have demonstrated that they're really here to stay and to contribute. And also, just to note, whenever I say things like that, you guys are obviously being expedited to that level from the outset, and you're the tone setters and the ones leading this charge. But in terms of the larger community, we'd want people to get to a certain point before they kind of can have those privileges and are really engaging in connections on the site, because we're worried about it becoming a bit wayward with trolls or whoever taking advantage of that, perhaps in avatars or various color schemes, etc., and just running wild with it. So we do still want to develop some trust in that framework as well. Again, I feel like I may not be getting to the heart of that question, so please let me know where I may have left something to be desired, but that's what I have for the moment. I'm going to move to Aaron Warhol. Sounds like a good opportunity to be in on the ground floor, which is valuable. I'm willing to put time in commenting and responding. Test will be if it feels like, okay, sorry, that wasn't a question, but appreciate the comment response, Aaron. Again, let's have these chats about kind of the execution of this over the next month in the kind of smaller group Skype sessions, which will be happening throughout the week at your guys' convenience. And we can really kind of dig into the weeds of what it might look like. I'm throwing a lot at everybody as well right now, so apologies for the information dump and trying to lay things out all at once. But definitely excited to kind of delve a little deeper in the coming weeks. So Mark asks, great question, is the whole thing behind a paywall at one level or another? That will keep out quite a few bad actors. Yes, so basically the paywall will exist for certain contributor-based interactions. In a sense, the folks who are paying $10 a month or whatever the discounted annual rate is are going to be able to have greater access to the contributor that they're subscribing to. In Jordan's case, obviously we're talking about things like Q&As, specific video chat sessions, any sort of exclusive content he's doing for ThinkSpot, polls, and anything that he interacts with on forum, annotations, comments, anything is only going to be visible to subscribers. Folks who see will be notified and will see that Jordan may have interacted with something or is doing a certain event, but that will be behind a paywall. They're not going to be able to see the Q&A and engage in the Q&A. They're not going to be able to see his comment, etc. So the subscription-based paywall stuff is very contributor mindful and centric. For the moment, we would like, because we feel confident in the way that we're kind of opening and closing the faucet in the beta period for who can come in and who we're confident is going to really contribute to the growth of this community within the spirit of what we're trying to build. We do want to allow a lot of the features and functionality that aren't access contributor-based stuff to be accessible to everybody. But this is also something that we know we need to be versatile and kind of flexible about if we underestimate some of our capabilities here and start to put things behind the paywall, because above all, we do value what the users are going to be able to accomplish on the site with each other and the world that they're going to create. My job is to protect that interest within ThinkSpot, and I take a lot of pride in doing that and building that. And so I want that also to be clear that that I'm going to be kind of the representative for you guys directly in the team, and want to make sure that everything is being relayed properly and that interests are being met. So I'm going to make sure that users are prioritized, and we're not exposing folks to their work being undermined or, I guess, kind of deconstructed by bad actors or folks coming in with malintent. Again, please feel free to follow up if I'm missing some things there, and happy again to dive in a little deeper in the coming sessions. So Aaron's asking, what determines? Okay, sorry. Okay, Mary Jo. Okay, you're good. All right. So what determines good use of time? For me, shared communal experience, place to practice articulating ideas, feedback, validation, or constructive criticism that leads to growth and discovery. Right. And so I think those are all really strong tenets of, first of all, the JBP Daily forum and the community that's been built there. Those are the kind of the pillars, I think, of what a lot of people are kind of building their experience around and on. And it's a super strong foundation. That, in so many words, is what we want to see on ThinkSpot, and be able to complement, facilitate, create, help create. That is where people feel comfortable with expressing themselves totally without fear of retribution, retaliation, brigading, with free expression being kind of one of the core tenets of what we're doing on our side. That's going to be really important for the users to feel from the outset as well. And I think that's more ideas-based introspective discussion tends to be more conducive to that kind of user behavior and comfortability and trust. So that's why we want those two to kind of have an interplay on ThinkSpot at the very beginning, and then going forward as kind of the core of the heart of what we're doing. So T-Roll asks, what can we do to help with both short goals now and long-term goals? Okay, great. So the way I envision this, and the way our team envisions this, is short term. I continue to liaise with you guys and converse with you guys and really listen to what everybody has to say here, about what their hopes, concerns, questions are about ThinkSpot and the platform and your role, as I continue to kind of lay out what exactly that's going to look like. So the short term is this dialogue that we continue to have while giving you looks in personal walkthroughs to things as they're rolling out and their blueprinting stage. And then long term, which I'd say is more medium term, is getting you guys on the platform as hyper privileged users and kind of hybrid user contributors who are able to post media as a contributor. When somebody follows you, they're also going to see the media you post. Other users will have to kind of work their way up to that, be trusted to post media, but also running the various filter groups, discourse groups, and pages and forum page that you guys would like to create on the site. And you get to kind of, it's an empty canvas in a lot of ways. It's a blank slate, and we want to give you the opportunity to kind of run amok and explore and make your mark, because it's going to be a long-standing mark. It's going to be the inaugural mark, which we as is going to set the tone, and is a pretty profound statement to make, something that we feel is very, very valuable is in terms of trying to create the right environment, the early days really matter the most. So that's how we see kind of the mid-long term. And then the long term is, when things are really opening up and we're bringing, other contributors, audience onto the platform where they're kind of marketing their own folks to come over, any users who are stumbling upon it, etc., to really just be leaders in the community, running your groups, running your pages, posting really interesting content as you have on JBP Daily in the form of media on your own page in various groups, across all of these sort of mediums. In addition to, if folks reach a certain, this isn't necessarily the end goal for everybody, but if you have aspirations to generate some influence on the platform and have a following, if it reaches a certain number, there's opportunity for you to monetize as well on a subscription basis. If you have ideas, kind of projects that you think are, complementary and could fit into the ThinkSpot world, to leverage that as well. So that's kind of the long-term vision. Obviously, there are some specifics that we can talk about in terms of like really on the ground in the platform, what it's going to look like with the UI UX. And I would really like to show you guys once that's physically there from our dev team, which it will be in the coming weeks, and to kind of walk you through what it looks like, and allow you to kind of have first look and first experience on the ground there as well. So yeah, Mark is echoing T-Roll, kind of how can we help best at this point, right? So just, I want to stay in contact with you guys, very, in a much more personal matter even than we're having now. It's kind of this one-way flow of information. I'm unloading a lot of stuff. So first of all, I appreciate your patience, but going forward, we're going to be able to actually, have a conversation, talk about back and forth, give you guys kind of a look into the platform and prepare for how you might contribute going forward if you elect to. Get on the platform, really use it, become leaders, set the tone, moderate going forward, and so forth. So John's asking if there's a timeline for the rollouts. There is. It's actually funny you asked that, because a week ago we put one together, and we had some firm dates, and then we had a buggy code merge, and things got, there were some red lines and contract negotiations with a vendor. So it's a little bit in flux, but I'm happy to show you guys a very rough timeline in our next conversations, what you can expect to come out. And I think there's some really cool things that are about to sort of unlock a lot of the potential of this platform in terms of the content engagement and obviously the interaction between users. One thing in particular is one of the vendors we're using for kind of like our search capabilities and our transcripts and all the metadata is incredible. And it's going to create a very immersive, exploratory experience on the site that we're really excited to roll out, as well as our own player, which is going to improve the UI and the formatting of a lot of the content. So things like that I can lay out for you once we kind of rearrange after we push our latest code, which will be tomorrow morning. I'll have a better sense then, and then we can kind of circle back and take a look at what the rough timeline is, and then look at some of the UI UX stuff, all the while getting everybody's feedback and giving you a better sense of what your role in TS might look like if you decide to come on board. Yeah, is there any material, one page or the like, that you can share on ThinkSpot? Be good to understand the vision and functional view of the platform. Yeah, we're actually, so we're compiling a one pager right now. All of our design elements are, we're working with a young woman, very talented young woman who's freelance and part-time at the moment. So it's not as, I guess, kind of efficient as it would be if someone was in-house full-time, but she's actually working on that at the moment. So I'm gonna, look forward to posting that and sending it out to everyone as kind of a guideline going forward, and just to give kind of a reference point for new users as well. Also, we're going to be putting up our community guidelines and our FAQ in addition. So hopefully that ameliorates that any sort of wandering that folks may be feeling if they're on the platform. Okay, yeah, and then so T-Roll says what you're talking about is a sophisticated version of a social media platform for the exchange of ideas and long-form communication. It is a paid service that therefore it does steal or misuse data. So you are correct that we want to, kind of expand upon the social media model in a oh, it does not. Yeah. Okay. In long, no worries. In long form, in kind of a long form format, that's absolutely true. Yeah, the paid element, we are hoping to, that will subsidize any other sort of, we're not messing with data by any means. We're obviously very reticent of that. Just generally from a personal perspective, as well as, with the current environment, the climate, and some of the mistakes that these tech giants have made. We possibly foresee the ebooks, selling of ebooks being kind of a point of revenue that will also help a lot. We have a kind of trial partnership with Penguin Random House right now, and they're prepared to release a real significant amount of books while putting us in touch with some of their authors who may want to get more hands-on in that environment of ThinkSpot. So we're really excited about that. And obviously that's something to look forward to with sort of a new tranche of books moving forward, but we're talking to some other publishing houses as well. But that's also a particularly exciting prospect. So Mark has to head out. Mark, thanks so much if you're still on here. Really appreciate the time. Looking forward to talking very soon and following up. And Yakin, you have to leave in a minute, but just want to express thanks so much. We really appreciate the sentiment, and thanks so much for being here. Seriously, it's I'm super excited to get to know you guys, and it means a lot that you guys are taking the time out to contribute meaningfully to this stuff. And I agree that it's super important, and really proud to be dedicating my life to this right now. So I agree, it's much needed. Sounds good. Yeah, definitely. Please send over your thoughts, and we'll be circling back very soon. But thanks so much, and have a great rest of the night. So John's asking about ebooks, if they'll be in EPUB and Kindle format. Yeah, so they would be in kind of this bespoke format, similar to kind of 12 Rules to Life, how it's updated in how it's uploaded in ThinkSpot. I do have to say that also leads me to a larger point. We're going to have to update the UI. It's by no means the end all be all. We have, the real framework is there, and we really like the kind of sleek editorial minimal look for sure. There are some things we're going to need to tweak going forward, and there will be some updates. So ebooks is one of them. It's not the best environment for really, a super pleasing to the eye aspect, but we really think we can establish a super usable Apple Books / Kindle experience on desktop or mobile, where it's a lot more kind of fluid, in addition to the annotations component if folks want to use that, or if they just want to read the book with annotations peripherally if they so choose, or not at all. So best case scenario, we integrate with Kindle. That's like, that's dream scenario, but that would be super cool. But we've got a long way until then, I guess. I'd love to start with just a few more books from Penguin, but it's a good question. Okay, so that's kind of all I'm seeing in terms of questions at the moment. Is there anything anyone else wants to ask real quick before we sign off? I think we're coming up on the hour exactly. Happy to stick around for a little bit if there's any additional thoughts, questions, or concerns. But This has been kind of a wild experience. I've never done a stream. I'm just kind of like talking into a screen, so it's a little bit weird, but thanks for bearing with me. I guess I'll give it a kind of a little bit longer here if anybody wants to get anything in, but if we're about to sign off, definitely appreciate everybody's thoughts, everybody's questions here. It's super awesome to be a part of this. There's not enough superlatives left here, to be honest. So with that in mind, really excited to kind of meet you guys and get some group discussions going on Skype, get some smaller breakout groups, make sure everybody can attend and is getting involved, as they see fit. But I'm going to host another session with this week with some of the folks who are on the non-North American time zone issue, and then I'll be circling back with everybody to dive into the more proximate discussions via Skype or Zoom or Hangouts, whatever's easiest for everybody. But I'm just going to get in touch with those folks a similar way here. But after that, we can really dive in. So next steps coming up soon. But Celeron, I'm not. Gosh, this is my first time doing this, so I can't say for sure. But that is a great question. Yeah, I'm not sure actually. Well, anyway, Celeron, we'll be able to. I'm going to be just having conversations going forward, as I mentioned. So, if you weren't able to get as much as you were hoping here, we can talk about it personally and a little bit more in depth than this kind of overarching chat. But blue light filter to reduce eye strain for ebook. Yeah, I like that. Definitely will. It's duly noted. I'd also like to increase the font size and change it up a little bit. It's becoming a little tedious and kind of static. But anyway, I don't know if that resonates with folks, but that's in consideration as well. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to sign off for now. But again, huge thanks. Looking forward to chatting with everybody very soon. Hope you have a great rest of the week, and I'll be in touch end of this week at the latest. But great chatting with you guys. Looking forward to meeting you in person on Skype, I should say, and then going from here. But many thanks, and have a great rest of the night. Thank you.